Hi, everybody. It's Mr. T again at the Wizard of House podcast. As you know, I'm your local realtor, and I've been bringing on different experts in different fields that can educate not just me, but all of our listeners. And today, I have the pleasure of having Matt Korr from Korr Inspections. And what we're going to do with Matt, we're going to just Korr and Company. I'm just going to ask him some basic questions. Matt has done a few inspections for myself, and he's very well known in the area. He is one of the very best of the best.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So, Matt does mostly residential home inspections.
Correct.
Now, it doesn't have to be a sale. It could be a pre-sale inspection. It could be a 4-point inspection, like your insurance. I'm sure you all have heard.
They're all very familiar now.
Yeah, if you need a roof or wind med or a 4-point, all this stuff that you're like, what is wind med? Well, Matt is going to explain all this for you. 4-point. What's the number 4 for? So, right. Matt, how long have you been? Go ahead, Matt, and tell us a little bit about yourself and welcome, and hope you're feeling better. You had a little medical issue,
yep,
like we all do. And
starting off 2022 well. So I've been doing this about 9.5 years, I think, is where I'm at now. I've worked for myself for almost all of that. I mostly, like you said, do the residential inspections, but that varies. I know some guys like to get into the big commercial jobs, but I prefer the residential, especially when you get to work with new buyers, and I guess old buyers alike. When you think about it, they're just as fun. I do have some specialties that I prefer. I like new construction. I know it sounds sad, but it's kind of fun to read the building code, which we've experienced a few times.
Yeah, for sure have.
But yeah, I mean, I guess that's me in a nutshell. I don't know what other specifics.
Yeah. Well, number one, explain to us, I mean, why do you think people should get a home inspection? I mean, what have you found, or would you get a home inspection? I'm sure you would, right?
Yeah,
based on what you've seen. So just tell us, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, it's, $500, $400,
right.
$600. Why? Well, everything looks good. Why should I?
And that's a great question. I get that one probably daily from the customer, and I don't mind spending the time on the phone every day talking to someone and telling them kind of the whys, and it's your interview process. It's one ironies about this field is you're hiring someone you've never met before in person. You can't feel me out to see if you like me, if you think I'm going to do the job for you. When you meet your realtor and then decide if that person suits you. This person you're hiring kind of on a quick decision. I think it's very important to get the inspection. For one, even I go back to when I bought my last house. I actually went in and did an inspection on it as if I was doing it for someone else. And I noticed one thing: when you're buying the house, you're worried about where the couch is going to go, if the TV is going to fit on that wall.
Yes.
All kinds of other things that cross your mind as a buyer that are important to you, but you forget about the fundamentals. I actually had to call in a friend of mine to help me inspect it, just to kind of ground me. I actually had Steve come help me for a while too, just check the plumbing for me. But it's when you put it on paper, of course, it becomes more scary for the buyers because they see something on paper and it looks like the house is falling down. But it puts it on paper, just simple as that. When you're looking at it, you say, okay, well, there's a cracked window, I can deal with that, or the microwave doesn't work, I can deal with that. But when you quantify it on a piece of paper, you can actually organize it. And even as an inspector, I wrote the whole report for myself so that I could sit there and look at what was important to me and check off what was and wasn't.
Great point right there.
You know, I obviously have a little bit more in-depth knowledge of the house than the average buyer. There are some that are pretty smart. I run into a lot of people that are pretty house savvy, and then half the time it's people you'd never expect it. But you know, that I do a lot for contractors, you know, an electrician or a plumber that's buying a house. And usually when we're done, they go, man, I never would have looked at that or looked at that aspect because they are concentrating on electrical or plumbing or roofing.
Exactly.
And they don't look at the other systems. Another thing an inspector does, I mean, you could hire a roofer, a plumber, electrician to come in. The inspectors, not hopefully all of us, but most of us look at the house as a system. It's a group of systems, and those systems don't always work together well. You know, your air condition may work great, but if it's blowing air on your smoke detector, the smoke detector might not work. And the electrician didn't really think about that because the ductwork wasn't there yet. So that is
great point.
One of the items that we looked at.
Talking,
it is. It's looking at the house as a group of systems that need to work together. So that would be my take on it.
Yeah. So, folks, you know, whenever a buyer or a seller, a transaction happens, us as realtors, you know, we tell the buyer, hey, you better get an inspection. There's forms out there.
Right.
That you say, no, we're going to make sure you sign, because it's not good when you don't get an inspection. An inspection also, remember, to me, is an orientation for the buyer. What things to expect for a year or two from now.
Right.
What needs immediate attention and what to budget for.
Right.
So, you know, inspection is a very, very important step of a sale. Now, some people call some inspectors deal killers. Some people call him, you know, he doesn't, you know, they're a man of all trades and expert of none or whatever.
Right.
Expert of all trades.
A lot of us call ourselves that.
Yeah. And you know, it's amazing because, again, last week, I've been through hundreds of inspections, and I still learn every day, you know, what things can blow up a deal and
right.
what things can show up. And at the same time, Matt doesn't do the pest inspections.
Correct.
The termite. So there's termite inspection, there's 4-point inspection, wind met inspection, home inspection, as well as pool inspection. There's just so many things involved. So it could get overwhelming for the buyer, the seller, the realtor. Everybody.
Right.
Okay. So, and you know, I have to just recollect, you know, get my memory of some stuff that I've gone through with inspections. But there is always, like Matt said, in his own inspection, this guy is a 10-year inspector, and he's really, really, he doesn't miss a thing. As far as I know, you don't miss a thing. On his own inspection, he separated what was urgent, what is like this owner should have already taken care of this.
Right. Like
you open the AC, it's full of mold. I mean, the filter is filthy. The coils are filthy, and the AC is only 3 years old. We went through that.
Right, we have.
And so we had the owner immediately take care of that, and the owner was surprised. The owner themselves were shocked. So that's what you want out of your inspector. Is the inspection is the orientation, and then give you some immediate red flags that needs to be taken care of, which usually an owner, depending on the deal.
Right.
Depending on the deal, because some deals, you're getting such a great value, great price that the owners wash their hands off the house. They come bring 20 inspectors. I'm not fixing a thing.
Right.
As long as everybody, changes. And sometimes that changes because the owner is like, what? I have termites?
Yeah. Well, I had
Guess what? If you don't sell the house, you got to fix the termites.
I had one a few weeks ago, probably right before the whole medical debacle, but the infrared camera picked up in the living room. There was a vent that was never cut into the drywall 18 years ago when the house was built.
Wow.
And it was the same situation. The seller's like, I'm not fixing anything. But when I showed them that, they said, oh, well, it stinks that that's fallen on them now. And unfortunately, when they had it inspected, that didn't get caught. But when they see what the issue is and you can present it clearly and say, this is really an issue, they tend to kind of kick in a little bit and help, especially if they can make sense of it in their own mind. That one was kind of funny because the realtor, while I was there, was still looking at listing photos of nearby houses to see if it was missing. And she goes, boy, they, all the other houses around here have that vent and this one doesn't.
I heard about that. Somebody told me about that.
It happens. I mean, that was a builder mistake 18 years ago. And for 18 years, unfortunately, we're blowing cold air into their attic.
And that brings another good point, guys. When you buy a brand new house, I know some builders don't like to hear this, but one of my buyers brought the inspector and he found exactly that on a brand new house.
Of course.
In Venetian Bay.
It happens.
The bedroom didn't have a vent. It was covered by drywall. So it's just that simple. And sometimes they go on the roof, they find things that weren't done right.
Right.
On homes that are 2 years old. One that Matt did for me, the whole AC system, the whole venting system was done wrong, where half of the house was really cold. And then part of the other house, like the master bedroom, was getting hot.
It was 10 degrees warmer in that
10
room.
degrees was warmer in that one room. So they brought the AC company back. It was still under warranty with the builder. And they realized, there was some kind of junction box issue in the attic. They turned it all on and fixed it. And that was after they lived there 2 years, the owner had no idea.
And fortunately, in that instance, the builder made good, the subcontractor made good on it. That's another reason to get an inspection within the first year of owning a house, because now you're still under your warranty, your manufacturer's warranty. And you're right, some builders are better than others about letting us get in there. It's unfortunate. I've had a few lately, a couple of weeks ago, where the builder had it in their contract that we were not allowed to inspect the day before closing. They absolutely would not let us in there. So,
well, that's how it is with general real estate. You only have like 7 days, max 10 days. I mean, the very max is like 2 weeks on cash deals. Sometimes the buyer wants to just take their time. But
the days of 21 days of inspection period are long over. We're down to a week or less now for the most part, which makes it difficult.
Tell us the different certifications and inspectors should have. What makes you different from some of the other inspectors?
That's actually a really good question. Back in 2012, I believe it was, is when they came out with licensing. Prior to that, you had to prove to your customers what your credentials were, because people were hiring you without a state license. So what was your qualifications to do that job? Prior to that, it was usually either a professional organization like ASHI or NACHI, FABI, Florida Association of Building Inspectors. If you belonged to one of those, that was your qualifier. That, people said, oh, okay, they follow the standards of that organization. At least I know they have some kind of background and standard of practice. Then the state came out with the licensing in 2012, and it kind of put us, unfortunately, all on the same level playing field. You go get your license, and now you're thought of as good as the next guy.
But do you have to have a license?
You do. You must have a license to inspect in Florida, but the licensing requirements are very minimal. So I think in one aspect that helped, because it did create a standards of practice that are flat across the state. But on the other hand, it made somebody with a 120-hour class just as qualified as someone that's been doing it for 10 years. So I personally have gone through the NACHI training and have their certification. I also went ahead and I went and got my certified master inspector through NACHI, which is another level up through them. So I'm a master inspector through NACHI. I try to do as much continuing education as I can, because I think if you're not learning every day, then you might as well stop what you're doing.
And you're insured
Oh yeah,
as well.
The state has minimum requirements, which I exceed, especially doing new construction. The builders want us to have a pretty high policy.
So this NACHI, what does that stand for again?
It's actually InterNACHI, but it's the International Association of Certified Home Inspectors.
Exactly. And then there's the American Inspectors Society. There's international. Let's see. Mold. What do you call the mold certified?
Just mold assessors and mold
certified mold assessor.
Yeah.
And
that's a license
that,
too.
right?
I just got that license.
Yeah. So he can also do mold. And talking about mold, man. Okay, so you have an inspector and he does the inspection. Behind you comes the termite guy at the same time.
Yep.
And the termite guy is not just looking for termites, guys. He's looking for wood decay, wood fungus, fungi, and mold.
No mold.
But this is where it gets tricky. Is wherever there is like a roof leak that's been leaking for a long time, you're gonna see wood decay, and around that is all black.
Right. So they're looking for WDO is the term that they use, which is wood destroying organism.
Yes.
And the state of Florida has a very specific definition of what they're looking for. It's specific to only those items. So wood boring beetles, subterranean termites, dry wood termites, and wood destroying fungus is on that list, which is in conjunction with a roof leak or any other kind of leak is going to create a wood destroying fungus. They don't identify the type of fungus, but they do identify that a fungus is damaging the wood. Mm-hmm. That doesn't include, which most people don't understand, because some states it does, but in ours it doesn't include, say, wood boring like bees or ants, carpenter ants, stuff like that. So those are actually not on that list, believe it or not. And a lot of people, especially customers, they've got this overwhelming amount of knowledge coming at them at one time. They don't know what we're looking for usually, but they don't understand that pest inspector, they like to call it, is not looking for pests. They're looking for items that are going to do damage to the wood. So they're not really in there looking for bugs, roaches, stuff like that.
But again, Matt crawls through the attic, and so does the termite inspector.
Right.
And they both a lot of times find the same thing. Yep. If there's a roof leak, they find it. It's not termites, but he's looking for termites, and then he finds the wood decay, and the wood decay can turn into bugs.
Right.
And
it looks,
and that's when they put it on their WDO report that there is,
which can become an issue when you have a VA or FHA loan.
Exactly.
Which makes it a little bit difficult. I think that's why there's some apprehension in sellers accepting a VA buyer, which is really a shame because the VA process is there to help the veterans.
Yeah.
But it is difficult to deal with any wood decay in that instance because you're going to have to deal with it. It doesn't get sold as is at that point.
Exactly.
The VA won't accept.
And also you do condo inspection, manufactured home inspections.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Homes with crawl space. Do you still do that?
I'll be back to it soon.
You'll be back to it soon.
Yeah.
And then all the codes, the new codes. Like, what happens if I have an old house and you come and do an inspection? And you're telling me that's out of code. That's out of code.
You never.
I mean, what am I going to do? Go change the whole house? One
misconception is that we are not code inspectors. We're not certified through International Code Council to be code inspectors. We're there for safety, depreciation on items that weren't installed correctly, things that are all kinds of things. So we're not code inspectors, but of course the knowledge base from code intertwines a lot of times with that. So I think it's important to know code as an inspector. We don't cite it. We don't say in a book, hey, this house is out of code, because that's the building official's job.
I hear it all the time. Like there's a wire running and they're like, that's illegal. But because it's not a conduit.
Right. So
somebody rigged the fan, like in the garage, and it becomes illegal.
Remember, illegal is subject to getting caught. So, do you speed every day at some point past the speed limit?
Yeah, but that shows up on the WinMed and the 4-point, and then they're going to turn me down on my insurance, right?
It can, but not because it's a code violation, because it was either done wrong or it's causing a problem. Yeah. And that's where there's a lot of misconception, where we're not expecting people to bring a house. You'll never get a house up to code. It's just not possible. Yeah. This house here we're in, I'm sure was built in the 90s. It will never pass the 2020 code. Codes, yeah. It changes every 3 years. The code does, and it was only applicable at the time it was installed. So. A water heater installed 3 years ago may be different than one installed now by a touch. They modify.
Are you getting affected by insurance? Are you getting a lot of calls? People are frustrated. Say, hey, you just did my inspection and my water heater is perfect. You put on there 1990 and now my insurance wants me to change it, and they're just freaking out.
I don't get a lot of complaints because I usually warn people pretty well about that when they're buying the house.
You prepare them?
I do. I mean, I have standard boilerplate comments in there like everybody else does. It says, hey, your water heater's 15 or more years old. Age doesn't mean that it's not going to function fine, but it's just a depreciation schedule. It's, hey, you shouldn't expect more out of it. And then I usually put a comment that says, hey, just be aware insurance may not like it either. I think that's important. As an inspector, we're not required to do that, but I think it's important because I want that person to know going in that when they call the insurance company, hey, my water heater is 20 years old. Is that going to be a problem? And that can get hit early on in the process. And if it needs to, it gets either negotiated or fixed or taken care of, so it doesn't get hit at closing or something comes up last minute.
Exactly.
So, going back to the whole code thing, it changes every few years, and insurance is the same way. And insurance changes every month. I had my insurance company call me on the way here.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, to tell me my rates went up, and I don't have any immunity from it just because I inspect that.
So, folks, with this new insurance dilemma in Florida, everybody's changing to Citizens. Like Citizens is getting all the policies. But we also have if the roof is like 15 years now or older, they're saying, but they're going lower and lower.
There's a few of them that
12,
are 10.
They're going 10.
I've heard 10.
We are hearing tile roofs at 25 years. They're wanting you to change them. A tile roof that's supposed to be 50.
That's a misconception.
But they're tile roofs can leak. But but I heard that they also put a limit on that now. It's 25 years.
Depends on the company. They're all different. There may be some that you can get 35, 40 years out of. I think Citizens, you might be able to get 40 out of a tile roof.
Oh, tile roof, good.
But that's with enough remaining life in it. And if we go into it and see a bunch of leaks, well, that changes, unfortunately. Yeah, tile's an outlier when it comes to roofing materials, unfortunately. Shingle roofs, metal roofs, all the other roof systems, the top layer is a water resistive part of that roof system. In other words, shingles shed water, the metal sheds water. The tiles are not meant to shed the water, and they're the part of that roof that lasts the longest. Under it, that membrane beneath the tile, unfortunately, fails at the 25 to 35 year mark. And it's the same material to an extent of what's under your shingles, if that makes any sense. So, your shingles last 20 years, if you're lucky, 25, we've talked about that. So yeah, the roofs are getting very difficult. The state's had a huge influx of hail claims. I don't know if you're familiar with those. Yes. The guys that go door to door and find a hailstorm that they can attach to your house and make a claim. And unfortunately, the state, all the insurers have been hit pretty hard with those claims. So a lot of them are pulling out of the state again, like they did 15.
And they're doing what they call now cash value. I'll have to bring an insurance expert next.
Yeah,
to discuss all of this.
Be a great.
Yeah,
I'll listen to that one myself because I always learn something with
it's
insurance.
It's getting really challenging to get insurance or to remain insured.
Right.
And,
so
because people are not used to these rates.
The best thing you can do is when if you get that cancellation or you get a big rate increase, is shop a couple companies. Unfortunately, most of them are going to look for a 4-point or a wind mitigation now in order to know how to place you with that company, because they want to know what their risk is. And that is what you were talking about, the 4-point, and what is it? It's the roof, the plumbing, the electric, and the HVAC systems, and they want to know the condition, the age, any signs of leaks. Fire or flood is what they're mostly concerned with, fire damage and water damage. And that's mostly what that form is asking for. And then, of course, some things are just too old for them.
Yeah, so on a 4-point, you have a separate form.
Mm-hmm.
What homes have to have that? Like what age?
The rule of thumb years ago was if you were 30 years or older, they would say, hey, we need a 4-point in order to place you with insurance.
Mm-hmm.
There's no answer to that anymore. A lot of them,
they just want one.
They want one if the house is 10 years or older a lot of times now.
And how about the wind?
The wind, that's company to company as well. That's why I usually tell customers that call and just say, hey, I just want to order everything, or with the inspection, they say, I want a wind mitigation, I want a 4-point. Sometimes you don't need it.
It's a new.
Yeah, if it's a new build, a lot of times they'll give you like an automatic rate because you're built in the current code, or at least one of the last cycles. And so your house is already wind resistant. Your water heater and all your appliances and your air conditioner are less than 10 years old because your house is new. So
now, what does an average 2,000 square foot home cost for an inspection? Like just to do a home inspection, just the inspection, and then what would be additional for a 4-point, like today's price? I'm not holding you to it.
No.
Just a standard 1-story.
It can vary. I charge according to the size of the house, the age of the house, and then to some extent distance. I mean, I go to Orlando, so I charge more to go to Orlando. Volusia County, I don't charge extra, and this is my home territory. So, nowadays you're usually starting in the 400 range for the inspection. And then of course the ancillary services that can add on to that. Your pools, average inspectors anywhere from $80 to $125. I've seen more, I've seen less. It depends on what they inspect. There are guys, we had talked earlier about dye testing pools and stuff. So there are some guys that will come in and do a dye test or check for leaks and stuff, which is obviously limited. So that varies. It's about, where I start is in the 400 range. I can do a brand new house smaller than that for less, obviously, and goes up from there.
Right.
I as well as I do, I'm there a long time, so I tend to be in the the middle high range for price. But
yeah, he spends quite a bit of time there. He's not fly by night.
No, I mean, I've never liked checkbox reports.
It takes 4 to 4 or 5 hours.
Sometimes,
right?
Yeah,
4 hours. Average 4 hours.
Usually minimum 3 on a small new house. And I equate that to going through. You have to go through the same systems. You still got to open the electric panel. I still do a scan of the ceiling with infrared camera. I think all those should be included in the inspection. Is at least a bare minimum, even though it's beyond what the state sets as a minimum.
Yeah, they check a lot of stuff, folks. First of all, they do their roofs. If you have skylights, flashing, right? The shingles, the end caps, anything that could possibly, all your vents.
Right.
They find a lot of times the vents that the squirrels have eaten the
squirrels
there.
Squirrels are culprits. Yeah.
he looks also, he checks, like if he sees red flags on grade of the home,
Yep.
where water could possibly penetrate, he knows, look for foundation issues. So there's a lot, when you go through a buyer, they just say, oh, this light came on and the faucets are running. There's just so much. A house is really one of the biggest items that's put together by people.
Yep. Thousands of components.
It's all human put together. So there's going to be stuff wrong, guys, that you definitely need to check. It's not a machine. It's not a computer. It's how many? I heard how many thousand components are in a house?
I couldn't even tell you that
100,000 or something. I heard.
Yeah,
it's all put together by people.
That's the biggest thing. People and imperfect materials.
Like electrical, we always find, oh, this GFI is not working. This electric panel is no good. It's a GE or a Challenger.
The biggest one would be Federal Pacific.
Federal Pacific.
Zinsco, Sylvania, GT. Yeah.
GT. Yep.
Yep.
So those are some insurance companies accept them, from what I learned. I had one that we had to close quick, and they took it with that Challenger box.
Did they? Yeah.
Yeah, and the one you did actually in Summer Trees.
Okay.
So they actually insured it. It's the same guy.
You never know with insurance what they're going to accept. There's some brands that are looked at differently from different companies.
But buying a home is tricky, folks. You want to have people like Matt on your side. The different steps. Again, we put the home under contract. The first thing is inspections.
Yeah.
And everybody is nervous about that. But a lot of times we have a very smooth inspection, and sometimes there's so many things to address that you need to sit down and reduce the items. A lot of times just say, look, I understand the house is 20 years old, 30 years old. Fix these 5 items for me, and we're going to move to closing. And some buyers come in and hand the list. They say, I want it all fixed. And so it just all depends. If it's a new house, there shouldn't be that much. But if there is a lot, maybe they should be fixed because it's brand new. It's a year.
I mean, that's
and then the next big thing is the appraisal. So we'll have an appraiser hopefully here. And if anybody wants to join my podcast, and just give me a call at 386-299-8989. That includes any other inspectors, lenders. I'm going to interview title companies, appraisers, probably plumbers, electricians. There's all kinds of steps into buying a home. And Matt is here for you. I'm going to let Matt just give you his contact information. If you have any questions, I guess they can call you, Matt.
Of course. Yeah. I actually, that's one of the parts of the job I enjoy. Not all guys answer their own phones. I do. I prefer if someone were to call me and actually treat it like an interview. Call me and say, hey, what do you do? What do you see in this house? That's one thing you can do with an inspector is, call and say, hey, here's the address. I've got it under contract. What do you think? I can usually look at a listing photo and pick a few things out and go, okay, well, I've got some concerns here. I do my homework before I show up. I try to look at as much of that house as I can. Permits and the listing photos will tell you a whole lot. Even Google Earth, you can look and say, oh, okay, they may have put a new roof on, but on this back half of the roof, there was a gaping hole 3 months ago. So I know when I get in the attic, I'm going to go right there. So I try to do my homework. I suspect a lot of the other guys do too. That's one thing about my profession is most of us are friends. I do like that. We help each other instead of hurt each other. I'm sure you know that.
Yep, same here.
I probably talked to about 10 other guys. Several of them are my direct competition right here in Volusia County. And we do nothing but help each other. There's a few outliers, but there's always going to be outliers. My cell phone contact number for everything is 386-295-4142 or 4142. I text at that number. I answer that number at all times of the day and weekends. even against my wife's will sometimes.
Sounds like me.
It's just part of the job. And my website is inspectionfl.com. I actually have a couple, but homeinspectionfl.com or inspectionfl.com are the same site. And anybody's welcome to put a contact form if they have any questions. I do new construction, old construction, anything you can think of.
And what areas?
I work, my primary territory is Eastern Volusia County, where I'm based out of. But I'll travel to Flagler and Orange County. I've been as far as a new place I've learned over in near Ocala recently.
In the woods.
Yeah, in the middle of the Ocala National Forest. I prefer to stay local, but you got to go where the money's at sometimes. This is my main territory. So,
well, thank you and congratulations on getting your mold license and all of that. And I'll keep that in mind if we need any of that. And folks, if you have any questions about anything real estate, just give me a call as well, 386-299-8989. And I appreciate everyone listening to my podcast, and it's getting better and better. And if you want to join my podcast, if you have a trade that you like to discuss and promote to our listeners, please feel free to call me. And Wizard of House saying goodbye. Thank you so much.